Welcome to the Dynasty Nerd Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
He's Garret Price.
How's it going?
It's going swell. We're here talking some Dynasty Fantasy Football in June. Today we're going to do a little superflex tight end premium startup mock draft in our next two shows. A nice little fun summer show we like to do once in the middle of summer, in the middle of the year, to kind of give us a pulse on how we want to build a Dynasty superflex tight end premium team. And, you know, strategies are always ever evolving. Definitely after we just did our couple of shows here over the last couple of weeks on these player breakdowns and how often they're going to be player ones at their position. It did kind of take effect on me a little bit, even this.
It definitely did me. You could tell by the way I drafted. It definitely did me.
Oh, I know right away when you picked, I was like, oh, this kid's all over that data. He's an analytics kid now.
That's right. Show me the math, baby. Show me the math.
Math is always right. So we're going to do a little startup. I got my first draft of the season coming up here this Saturday. I got the Scott Fishbowl draft starting for me on Saturday. Excited for that. With all those.
Oh, Rich, real quick.
Yes.
Real quick, while we're talking the ones, got an awesome email from Neil Friedman. He sent me an email regarding our tight end episode. He said an interesting note that he found. He said, of the 12 tight ends with 4+ seasons as a top 6 tight end, 11 of those 12, so 92%, were a top 6 tight end by their first or second year. So we know pretty quick of those elite guys. We find out pretty quick. So that was a really good note when he was digging through the data that he found. So I just wanted to put that out there. Good job, Neil, for finding that. I thought that was a good little note to put in here.
Ooh, Neil's trying to get a job with the Nerd Herd. Keep supplying that kind of information. That's good stuff. So if you're a tight end, top 6 tight end in your first 2 years, then that's where the
92% chance you're going to have 4 or more years as a top 6 tight end.
Oh, wow. So Sam Laporta he's the guy.
Yeah, you want him. You want him for sure.
Yeah, I do. Look at my lips. So, startup draft here. We ended up with, we kind of went here and picked our picks. You guys logged in before me here on Sleeper. I saw Matt took the 9th pick. I saw Garrett took the 12th pick. Now, I usually like to pick at the back end of the draft. Like, that's my spot, too. Like, oh, look at me. But I don't want to be back there with all you fools getting all elbowed and touchy-feely. So I stood as far as way possible. I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick where I dislike the most. And that's the one spot. I really do. Like, I always feel like I come away with a team I don't like as much from the one spot every time. I usually, if it's like a real draft, I usually make a lot of trades to kind of get moved back up a little bit because –
sure.
Every time I'm at the one spot, I always feel like I'm missing out. I just miss out on a guy I want. Like every single time. It's like, here it comes. He's gonna get there. There he goes again, sniped. So
yeah, I'm okay with the 1 or the 2. It's like the 3, 4, 5 that I really like, especially right now, because I value all those quarterbacks the same from like 3 or 4 to like 9, 10, 11. I view all those guys as almost interchangeable. So for me, I was like, I almost never pick the very, very end. So I'm gonna do the back end this time.
And it's also no fun being 9 and having to pick and then having Garrett pick twice before you get to pick again really quickly because you think you're going to get a lot of guys coming back to you and then you just don't. So it's great.
Yeah, I like the 9 spot. I like the 10 spot. I usually every year in the Scott Fishbowl, every year I've been in, I picked the 10th spot. This year I put the 12th spot because I'm hosting the live event, so I want to have those back-to-back picks so I can kind of like frolic around and host, and give away prizes and drink some booze, things along those lines. No gambling. I got the quick funny story. I went to Pittsburgh this week. I was there for 6 days for Little League baseball tournament. And I got a whole bunch of 11-year-olds addicted to gambling. It was a really great accomplishment of mine. I'm very proud of that. I got them to play left, right, center. I got them to play that horse race game we played in New York, which they really liked. And then I got them to play Screw Your Neighbor. So it was a really good game. Every morning the kids came to me like, hey, can we play games with you again, Rich, tonight? And I'm like, absolutely, kids.
Bring your money, kids.
Yeah, the funny part is most of those kids came up straight cash. They were in a good position to win money and not lose money since they had the bank accounts of the adults. It worked out well for those kids. They all walked away feeling pretty rich. So that's what we're doing here. We're gambling. We're gambling on players. We're gambling on picks. And let's just dive into this mock draft. We went 20 rounds, so we got a lot of rounds to cover here.
Ooh.
And with the first overall pick, this is the best part of the whole draft for me. You get the first pick of anybody you want. And we kind of talked about this in our quarterback episode, right? Like it's Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes. And like right now, it seems like Josh Allen is locked in as the number 1 overall pick in Dynasty. I mean, I don't look at it as there any wrong pick here if you want Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen. Honestly, if you really believed in CJ Stroud long-term and that's your guy, I have no problem with him either. And honestly, really, it's any of those guys that you really like. If say like Joe Burrow is your guy, the smart move is to trade back. But, those 3 guys that I really look at, the Stroud, the Mahomes, and Allen, were all in consideration for me at 1-1. But I went with the guy who's consistently in the top 2 of overall scoring, and that was Josh Allen here. There's no way I would not go quarterback. I mean, how good of a player would he have to be for you guys to have like the number 1 overall pick in a super flex draft not to go to quarterback? Like say, for example, say Marvin Harrison Jr. comes out this year, right? And he has 1,900 receiving yards and 13 touchdowns and 135 receptions. Like, and you're like, wow, like he just dominates the whole season. Would you take him 1-1 or is it still the quarterback?
I mean, Garrett's face says it all right there, right?
Yeah, I know.
I don't know, man. That's such a difficult thing to kind of the fake thing that you just threw out there because it's never going to happen. In that
you can't say that.
In that highly unlikely scenario, I mean, I might entertain it, but that would be like the only way. I mean, I would still be leaning quarterback because the odds of him repeating that year in and year out are pretty slim, right? He might have just hit his ceiling in year 1 and then gone down. So
92%, 92%. If you finish,
that's at tight end.
That's a tight end. Wrong position, dude.
It's pretty tight endpoint. Tell you that.
For me, I guess it would depend on where everyone else was at, like Chase and CeeDee Lamb and those guys, because I would need to feel good that he's like a 3 to 4 point higher on average than those guys for me to, because like I'm looking for advantages, right? So if I think that he's a significant advantage over Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb, which sounds hilarious saying that, then I would consider it. But if he's still like not far off from those guys, then I'm still not getting that big of an advantage. So I'm probably going quarterback.
I mean, he's a 21-year-old, 6'4", 205-pound monster that almost had 2,000 receiving yards his rookie year. Kyler Murray just signed a long-term extension. That's all I'm wondering. Again, we're talking fantasy, but this is a fantasy football show, so why not, right?
Why not?
All right, so I went with Josh Allen. If you follow the draft board, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can see this. Maybe we'll throw the link to the draft in the show notes on the podcast, so you can look at that as well. Do you guys want to go through all the picks, or you just want to get to our picks specifically?
I think we can quickly, because it does affect how we draft.
Okay.
Yeah, early on especially.
For sure. And I think it's important to note that we are the only live people. The 3 of us are the only live people drafting. The rest is computer. So
the rest are dead.
Auto picked.
Mm-hmm. So
all right.
Yep.
R.I.P.
What do the zombies do here?
All right. So at pick 2,
calm down, Garret. Matt's talking.
Look, it took too long. No dead air. I had to cover.
And proceed. Go ahead.
All right. Pick 2, Pat Mahomes. Pick 3, Jamar Chase. Probably a little higher than he would normally go. CJ Stroud at 4, Jalen Hurts at 5, CeeDee Lamb at 6, Lamar Jackson at 7, and then he almost fell to you, Matt. At 8, Justin Jefferson went, and then Matt, you were up with 9. Matt, did you consider taking Justin Jefferson? Would you have if he would have been there?
So I specifically picked number 9 because I thought by then enough quarterbacks would have gone that Justin Jefferson would have to be the pick, right? Like he would just be sitting there staring me in the face. I've got to go grab him, right? And then this absurd board just drops, and Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb both go, and I'm like, oh my god, am I still also going to get Justin Jefferson here at 9? But right ahead of me, he goes number 8. So I'm stuck with the, do I take the fourth? No one's going to take the fourth best wide receiver. Come on, guys. So I went Justin Herbert here. For me, he's like my third ranked, fourth ranked, somewhere right around there, quarterback in Superflex tight end premium. So this was an easy pick with all the other things going on with the wide receivers in the first round.
Perfect. Then Joe Burrow went. Amon-Ra St. Brown went at 111. And then I was up. And this was the exact scenario that I was hoping for at 112. And so it played out perfectly for me. So I ended up going Caleb Williams at 112. Yes, little bit risky, but to get those top tier guys, the guys that can enter the Allen, the Mahomes tier, this is your only chance to get Caleb Williams at any sort of smaller price than that. So I feel pretty good about getting him here. Did consider Anthony Richardson. I did consider Jordan Love, but I went with Caleb Williams here and felt pretty good about it. And then, like we said at the beginning of the show, I was already trending this way, but when we did the RB1 shows and we saw truly how valuable those elite young running backs are, I was not going to risk not getting at least one of those guys on my team. So I took the first running back off the board in Bijan Robinson. Yes, Marvin Harrison was still on the board. Yes, I could have gone 2 quarterbacks and doubled up with an Anthony Richardson, a Jordan Love, whatever. This is exactly how I wanted it to go. I wanted to get that good young running back to make sure that I had one on my team that I could count on for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And I got that in Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, and kudos to you for passing on a 21-year-old, 1,900 receiving yards with 134 receptions and 13 touchdowns receiver. I mean, talking about ballsy. Yeah, I respect it. Stick to your hustle. And anybody wondering, you go back and listen to these episodes, like you're in that tier. Like if Bijan hits and turns into what we expect him to turn into, then this is a long-term play that is equal to a quarterback, a wide receiver, or a tight end is what the data will tell us.
Yep. Is that now for you guys? I know this is not traditionally the route we would go. Would you guys have gone Bijan Robinson at 2-1, or would you have leaned quarterback or Marvin Harrison Jr.?
So I alluded at the beginning of the show that every time I wanted a player, it seemed like you took him with one of the 2 picks in between our picks, and you sniped me quite a bit. And I mean, the next 3 guys, including Bijan Robinson, were all guys I was kind of targeting with my second pick, and they all went bing, bing, bing. And it kind of, so the next 3, obviously Bijan Robinson, and then it was Marvin Harrison and Breece Hall before my pick. So yeah, I totally, to answer your question, I was leaning that way because I just wanted to see the outcome. You know what I mean? I know it's not what we normally do, but I wanted to see how my team would look if I tried to do that. And it didn't work out that way. The board didn't fall that way to me, so I didn't get to do my little experiment. But I'm totally with you. I would have picked Bijan Robinson here. How about you, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, because I actually tried to experiment recently I did the Dynasty Nerds best ball draft, and I told you guys on this show, like I had this like 8th pick or somewhere in there, and I was like, I'm gonna go completely different, and I went Justin Jefferson 1 and Breece Hall 2 in the first round, the second round, and I'm happy with that team. I really am. But here, like, I think, if this was a real draft, I'd probably stick with what I usually do. And for me, it probably came down to Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jordan Love, personally, just because I just knowing like the running backs that would come back to me, and still even though all the data points still point that way, like I still feel like that'd be the easiest position for me to grab. Like I think I'd feel more comfortable grabbing like a Breece Hall, Bijan, probably like 4 more spots like after this, because I know for sure by passing on that quarterback, like I'm going to get a tier 3 probably quarterback at best as my second quarterback. And also I'm just a really big Jordan Love guy. Like I just really firmly believe like he's going to be a top 6 guy here for the foreseeable future. And to be able to pair him up, a 25-year-old with a Caleb Williams, I feel really good about that. And the same thing with like Marvin Harrison Jr. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. is the closest thing we have to like he has a chance to enter that Justin Jefferson tier, that Jamar Chase tier, and at 21 to be the youngest bunch of all those guys. Like that's really hard to pass up on too for a running back that we still have. Sure. Again, listen, and we all believe it. And I can't say we haven't seen anything on Marvin Harrison Jr., but he's never played a snap in the NFL. Yeah, a lot's changed with Bijan, but he's played in the NFL and he wasn't, even as a running back 1, he wasn't like a game-changing running back 1. Like Breece Hall, when healthy on the field, he's shown us he's a game-changing running back 1. So with those little bit of question marks, I probably would have leaned Marvin Harrison Jr. or Jordan Love. It really depends on how I was feeling that minute. It really would have, but that's where I probably would have leaned. But not a bad pick again. And it's kind of hard. Like, and that's what's funny about these like top 2 rounds, right? Like you can't, it's just how you want to structure your team. There's no wrong way. It's just like how you want to structure your team. So if like Garrett wants that young running back, then build your team around a young running back. Like that's how it's all going to play out. Whatever, which way you go, you're going to have a slight dip somewhere else unless you hit a home run, right? Like, so it's just how you want to build your structure. The first 2 rounds to me in these superflex startups or even mock drafts, like it's so easy because you can't criticize anything, right? You can't say, oh, well, that's a bad pick. You got Bijan Robinson. It's not a bad pick. So it really just comes down to structure and kind of like getting your guys. I think we've talked about that before, Garrett. Like just, hey, if they're in the same tier, just get the guy. Like this is supposed to be fun, right? Like fantasy football, especially Dynasty, even more so Dynasty. Like you want to have fun. Definitely like if you get a young guy, like the plan is to have that guy on your team. These are cornerstone players for 5 years, 6 years. That's a very long time in a league's lifespan. So like you want to have fun doing it. You want to have guys that you want to cheer for, you want to root for. It's the reason I took Breece Hall and Justin Jefferson in that draft. It's because I had 0 shares of those guys. And I was like, you know what? Enough's enough. I will figure this out. I'm confident enough how I can build this team after the point. I'm going to get my guys. I'm going to have some fun with Justin Jefferson, Breece Hall. And that's how everybody should do it. Like if your favorite team is the Cardinals, then you would better off taking off Marvin Harrison Jr. If you're a huge Colts fan, then you're probably better off taking Anthony Richardson. Even if you, like as crazy it may seem, and you can't trade back, like if you're a huge Giants fan, you're a diehard, right? And you're like, I need Malik Neighbors. Okay, you're really just overtaking them about 7, 8, 9 draft spots. So it's not even like, it's not like you're doing anything crazy here. Like get your guy and figure it out later. It's so easy to figure out, in round 3, 4, 5, because there's still a lot of talent there. It's easy to fill those holes compared to like, I always believe the draft starts right around like rounds 4 through 8, right? Like that's the core that's going to decide if you really are going to win a championship or not. Like hitting on those picks and structuring a team that way. So any way you want to spin it, it's fantastic. So Matt, if you want to take us all the way through to your pick and my pick, I'm happy to see who's going to go off the board here.
Sure. So I already mentioned, obviously we said Bijan Robinson. I mentioned the next pick. 2-2 is Marvin Harrison Jr. And then 2-3 is Breece Hall. And then it came to me. So I was thinking all along, hey, when I first started this whole thing, I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to try to take wide receiver at 9. I'm hoping Justin Jefferson's the guy that's there, and that's who I'm going to take. He wasn't there, so I ended up going quarterback first, right? And now that I did the quarterback, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take either a running back or a wide receiver. I'm going to get juicy in this one, right? Just joking. All 3 of the guys that I really wanted to take got taken. So I did chalk again. I'm like, all right, this is what I always do. I guess this feels right to me. I'm going to take Jordan Love. So I took Jordan Love with 2-4. I feel really good about the pairing, right? I mean, Herbert and Love together, they're both young and both have immense upside. So I'm looking at 2 guys that could be sitting there in the top 10 for the next 10 years. You know what I mean? Like this is fantastic. So going back to what you were saying, Rich, you can't really go wrong. I had 2 different plans in my head, right? Like I started off with one thinking I'm going to be going wide receiver, then quarterback. And then when I picked quarterback, I was thinking, all right, I'm going to go quarterback and then wide receiver or running back. And it just did not fall that way. So you got to be kind of light on your feet here. early. You got to be able to kind of, bob and weave here as the picks come down and make decisions that are going to, affect later on in the draft. But like you said, it's rounds 4, 5, 6, 7. That's when you're going to really need to be a little bit more nitpicky because all these guys at the top are good. So I feel really good about Jordan Love. And then 2-5 was Anthony Richardson. 2-6, Christian McCaffrey. 2-7, Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs was the other guy that I was kind of teetering on whether or not I would take him, but I thought it was a little bit high. But he just goes a few picks after I went. And then at 2-8, it was Garrett Wilson. 2-9, Puka Nacua, which for me that feels a little bit early. I know Puka's he's a hot name. He had an amazing rookie season. I think Cooper Kupp's going to come back this year and show people that he's still a person that plays NFL football pretty well. So I think Puka is going to take a little bit of a step back here. Nothing crazy. I think they're both going to be viable guys, but I think that high for Puka is going to be you're going to be sad if you take him that high. And then 2-10 Malik Neighbors, 2-11 Tyreek Hill, and then Rich, you were up there at 2-12.
Hey, Nerd Herd, this is Rich Dotson. I've got some exciting news for you. Underdog Fantasy is back with their annual Best Ball Mania tournament, and this year it's bigger and better than ever with a whopping $15 million prize pool. Best Ball Mania 5 is the ultimate fantasy football competition where you draft your team and then sit back and relax. No trades, no waivers, just your best lineup every week automatically set by Underdog. For just $25, you can enter for a shot at the grand prize of $1.5 million. Plus, there are tons of other prizes throughout the season, including $500,000 for the top regular season performer. And guess what? We've got a special offer just for our listeners. Use the promo code NERDS when you sign up, and Underdog will match your first deposit 100% up to $100. That's right. Double your money to get more entries and more chances to win. Don't miss out. Drafts are happening now, and entries close before the first game of the season. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app, sign up with the promo code NERDS, and start your journey to fantasy football glory today. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. The terms do apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. In Tennessee, call 1-800-889-9789. Yeah, so I knew here I had to grab a receiver as one of my picks because if I waited any longer to come back the next round, I'm looking at like hopeful wide receiver 1s, maybe wide receiver 2s. I didn't want to risk that. So with AJ Brown on the board here, still only 26 years old, a consistent wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 1 at that, I felt like that was an easy choice for me. And then with my first pick in the third round at 3-1, this is where I had to make a decision, right? Like, do I grab a running back here? But there was no running back after, like, once Gibbs was off the board, like, that was it for me. Like, I knew immediately at that point, like, I knew I could take Achane here, but, like, I'm not taking Achane over Sam Laporta in a tight end premium league. I'm not doing that. I'm not taking Achane over some of these quarterbacks. So it really came down to, like, I had Sam Laporta where, like, my thumb was going down to hit it. And I was like, you know what? I could probably get Kincaid on the way back. So, I've waited this long to get married to my husband. I could wait just a little bit longer. And as I was about to hit Laporta, I was just looking at the quarterbacks and seeing who was available. And I said, I'm going to take Jaden Daniels. I know we're like months removed away now, like from watching tape and talking about these players, but in my head, I was just thinking about how good Jaden Daniels' tape looked. His rushing ability, and like that looks like he has a floor of 500 rushing yards a year right now. A really good deep ball. Some good weapons out there in Washington with Jahan Dotson and Ben Sinnott and Terry McLaurin, and then even bringing in like a Luke McCaffrey to develop out there. So for me, I being a mock draft, if this was a real draft, I probably would have taken Laporta, but the upside of Jaden Daniels is too enticing at a quarterback, and to have two rushing quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels. I thought if Daniels hit, those two players alone for a very long time would single-handedly carry me to the playoffs year in and year out. So for me, I went Jaden Daniels, and the very next pick was Sam Laporta, and I was like, yeah, the zombies know. The zombie knows these sleeper zombies, they know what's up.
Good.
So yeah, so it went Sam Laporta right after my pick. Would you guys have taken Sam Laporta there? Like, would that have been a smash pick for you, or would you have gone just a completely different direction altogether?
I mean, for me, I think, I think you did right by getting your second quarterback, right? I mean, if you hadn't taken a wide receiver in the second round in AJ Brown, and you took a quarterback there, I would say then get Laporta. But since you decided to do the wide receiver route, I think you have to get your second quarterback, just because you're so far removed from your next pick that who knows who's going to come back? Where's that run going to be? And when there's already 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, there's already 10 quarterbacks off the board. And if another 10 go off before you get back, it gets back to you, or something close to that, you're really bad off for your second quarterback. So I think you almost had to, but you couldn't go wrong getting Laporta at that pick if you already had your quarterbacks locked down, or there were less quarterbacks off the board already.
Yeah, and that's the biggest worry, right? Then you're in a superflex league standing on one leg with just a one quarterback, and then you're hoping other quarterbacks pan out. And it would have turned out like there would have been a couple quarterbacks there that I would have been okay with, but they're all like chance quarterbacks and not a chance to have an elite quarterback. Because you got to remember in superflex, like the reason you want to grab these quarterbacks early is because having two of them, just like I said before, like if you have two really good quarterbacks, if the rest of your team is solid, like they can carry you into the playoffs, right? Like we went over this point data before, like how far ahead, even like a guy like Brock Purdy being a top 10 overall fantasy football scorer. So to have a guy like that, if I went to Brock Purdy, for example, having Josh Allen and Brock Purdy, Josh Allen, a top 3 overall fantasy scorer, and then having a guy like Brock Purdy, who's the 10th overall scorer, like you're in a very elite opportunity here. Like you're in a very elite team where there's 12 teams in the whole league, and for you to have opportunity to have 2 of the top 10 overall scorers, that's a true difference maker there for not only your team, but for your playoff chances and just of any matchup. Like you're in every game, right? Because those are 2 guys that can go off and score 40 points each, and boom, you have 80 points. Where if you get mediocrity out of the other, say 9 players where they scored just 10 points, you take that 90 plus to 80, you're at 170. It's a very good game by itself. So like I said, afterwards, I went Sam Laporta at 3-2, then Drake London, Kyler Murray, Jonathan Taylor, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, which probably hurt. Well, you already had 2 quarterbacks, so never mind. Saquon Barkley, and then Matt, you're on the clock. You like to break up marriages. You don't believe in true love. You don't respect friends' boundaries. You get a little handsy when you had a couple drinks, and I understand that. I've known you for a long time. That's always been you. So how'd you go this way, Handsy McAnsy?
I stole your husband, Dalton Kincaid, right out from underneath you. No way he was getting back to you. I can't believe you and thought he was going to get back to you. That's ridiculous. 3-9.
Taking your shirt off, walking around all handsome and stuff.
I was making my pecs bounce and everything. He was all into it, dude. It was great.
Damn it works every time. It does.
Dalton Kincaid, 3-9. So this was another one of those things where I picked Kincaid hoping that a specific running back would come back to me, and I should have known better. But so after me at 3-9, it was Brandon Ayuk at 3-10, and then our friend Kyron Williams at 3-11, and then Garrett was up again. Go ahead, Garrett. Explain to everyone your 2 picks here.
Yeah. My picks are very similar to my first 2 picks. I decided to get my second quarterback, and I was really happy that Prescott was there. I would have been happy with Purdy or Lawrence or any of those guys. But Dak, I think, fit really well because Caleb Williams, as much upside and as excited as I am about him, he's still a rookie and there's still a lot of risk. Whereas you get a guy in Dak Prescott, a little bit older, he's 32 years old. but he's an established player. You know what you're getting out of him. He was quarterback 3 last year. He's just a really solid quarterback. So if for some reason my first pick blew up in my face, I don't think it will, but if it were to, have a very safe, steady guy to kind of keep things afloat for a while as well. So went Dak Prescott. And then I said, for me, there's one last kind of elite running back left. And most teams, or actually I shouldn't even say most, a few teams will have one elite running back. But there's plenty of teams with no running backs. What if I have 2 elite running backs? So I went with Devon Achane. I'm still very bullish on Devon Achane this year. I know he's dropped down people's boards and redraft, and people aren't so like, I don't get why not. Like, I truly don't get why people have him lower than they should. The guy showed elite ability last year, made tons of big plays, and the addition of Jalen Wright, who I like, means nothing for this year. The only thing it'll mean is if Mostert gets hurt, that's who replaces him. Like, that's all it means. So I think we're still going to get the 15 touches or so a game total. That's receiving and rushing for Devon Achane. And most weeks, he's going to be giving you over 100 total scrimmage yards.
Agreed. And I hate you.
Hey, Dynasty Nerds, it's time to take your Dynasty game to the next level with FFPC's Dynasty Startup Leagues. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, FFPC has a league for you with entry fees ranging from $100 up to $5,000. Choose from a variety of formats, including Superflex, Best Ball Superflex, Triflex, 1QB, and Standard. With weekly lineups, waivers, trades, head-to-head matchups, and playoffs, FFPC's fully managed leagues provide the ultimate dynasty experience. Most importantly, the leagues are here to stay. FFPC has never had a dynasty league fold. They manage the entire commissioner experience from buy-in management to fulfilling your orphans. FFPC is perfect place to expand your dynasty league portfolio. And here's the best part. As a Dynasty Nerds listener, you can get $25 off any entry fee as a new member when you use the promo code NERDS. Head over to myffpc.com now to draft your team, manage your roster, and dominate your league with FFPC. That's myffpc.com. Promo code NERDS for $25 off any entry fee for new members. FFPC, where dynasty dreams become a reality.
Can I just end that end of sentence? So that was the guy that I was really hoping came back to me. I have a weakness, and it is tight ends. And I probably should have seen this coming from Garrett and just taken the running back and waited for the tight end, because you would have waited on tight end most likely. I probably could have gotten Achane and Kincaid if I waited. But I thought since he already has Bijan, he's already got Bijan Robinson, I'm just going to do it this way and see how it happens because I want Kincaid that bad. Well, that's what I get for being greedy and getting rich's man. I didn't end up getting Devon Achane. So 4-1 Devon Achane. Go ahead.
But man, I thought it was a good risk because I never would have thought, as much as I loved Achane too, like that's not a move that's certainly not a move I don't think I would have made in a startup draft, because I thought you would think for sure like he has to grab a receiver here, right? Because like those guys are dwindling down, like those wide receiver ones. There is some wide receiver ones, guys that have finished as wide receiver one still on the board here, and he would have to know like there's no way those guys are getting back to me. So like by doing so, he's put himself at a hole at the receiver position, like some big gambles he's really got to hit, and we'll see how it plays out for him. But I would have said too, hey, I'm gonna get my tight end, because I would have guessed, Matt, like, yeah, there's a greater chance that he takes Kincaid here than there is Achane because he has Bijan. Because if I do make that move where I grab the running back early, I know for sure I am fading running back hardcore until like the later rounds and grabbing some of the older guys. Like I'm like, hey man, I got Bijan here. That's cool because I'm gonna load this up, and like I like having that young running back there because like I can grab Raheem Mostert later. I can grab Joe Mixon later. I can grab Aaron Jones later. I could just be fine. I'm like, okay, if I grab Mostert, I'll come back and grab Jalen right afterward. You know what I mean? Like that's what had been happening in my head. So like I thought it was a calculated risk that I would 100% would have taken too. There's no way I would have taken Kincaid there. And I am very happy you did take Kincaid because he was a second run tight end off the board. And that did warm my heart where I did lose my husband. I know he went to a loving home and somewhere he's really wanted and he will be loved because he's taken above all the other ones. And you still had a lot of other options. There's a lot of other supermodels out there on the board, but you took my supermodel. And I'm okay with that because I love you. And I'm not a finger touching friend like you are. But yeah, it was a calculated risk. So I'm interested to see how this played out in the fourth round here afterwards.
All right, so let's get going with the fourth round.
He does it again. He does it again.
I thought we were going in the same order.
You're stealing.
I did round one. I do round four.
He's talking over you. Some things we would never do. But here he is, talkertons. All right, go ahead, Mister. I got a lot to say.
Yeah, we know me. So Trey McBride was the second guy off the board in the fourth round. Chris Olave 4-3, and then Matt, you have a unique strategy here as well.
No, when I didn't get my guy, I said screw it. You know what? No one else is getting any tight ends that are any good. I'm going to go Brock Bowers, and I don't care. No, but honestly, I wanted to see what would happen. This is obviously a tight end premium league. So I have got Kincaid, and I was really eyeballing running back a couple different times, and I've gotten sniped, and I'm starting to get angry about it. But it's okay. I'm still not going to force the issue because there are better players than the running, better players than the running backs that are available. So I wasn't in love with any of these wide receivers that are kind of left hanging out there. There are a couple that have a lot of similar upside to me. Actually, there's probably about 5 or 6 that had real similar upside. So I decided to just kind of screw it, and I'm going to see what happens. We have a lot of flex options in this league as well. I'm going to take Brock Bowers, one of these guys that we don't know anything about. He's an all-world guy from all the scouting that we've done and all the metrics and all that kind of stuff. So I feel pretty good that he's a guy that now that we have this new tight end metrics that, hey, if they score top 6 in the first year, blah, 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 blah. I feel pretty good that he's a guy that could get there and he could end up being a guy that has multiple tight end 1 years in his future. So I just kind of wanted to see what happens if I basically fade everything that I came in here thinking I was going to kind of load up on early. And I'm just gonna burn this sucker down and see how it rises from the ashes. So I went Brock Bowers there, and then directly after me it was Travis Etienne. Kenneth Walker went 4-6. 4-7 was Rome Odunze, which I think was a nice pick, and he was a guy that I was thinking maybe since he's a rookie he'll slide a little bit, and maybe he'll get back to me. He didn't even get close. Nico Collins went 4-8. Devontae Smith was another guy I was hoping would kind of swing back on the way back. He didn't. Jalen Waddle was a guy I was actually contemplating there at 4-4 and couldn't pull the trigger on. And then 4-11 was Michael Pittman Jr. And then Rich, you were up for 2.
And I'm in the boat that you were in, Matt, here, like where the zombies were just like picking me off one by one. I was like, man, I hope I can get Nico. He's gone. Pittman gone. Waddle gone. Smith gone. So I settled right away here at 4-12 with, the last receiver on the board who finishes a wide receiver 1, who's now paired up with Caleb Williams and a player that honestly I've loved from the get-go, and that's DJ Moore. I want to make sure in this league, in this format, you only have to start 2 receivers. So I wanted to make sure I got 2 guys that are both under 28 years old. Honestly, Josh Allen is my oldest player here, and he's my oldest player for a while too at 28. Everybody else I got was 27 years or younger, which I love to do in a startup. So getting DJ Moore kind of fixed that problem. And there's absolutely no way that I was getting out of this round without grabbing a tight end. Like this is already long enough for me. We all know after last week how I feel about tight ends and how loosey goosey we can get around these parts of town. And for me, Kyle Pitts was a very easy answer here. Slam dunk. I knew it. Obviously Kincaid wasn't coming back to me, but this was the guy I was kind of hoping would fall to me here. Like I would have been pretty upset if Kyle Pitts would have got sniped here amongst all those receivers, because I probably would have taken like Mark Andrews here, and I would have jumped quite significantly in my age gap. So for me, getting Kyle Pitts, I answered my question in a tight end premium league of getting that guy. You taking Bowers already, which I love because you had two of the premium positions in your first round picks. But I'm getting a 23-year-old guy who, in his very first year, was a high-end tight end with 1,000 yards receiving. And if you guys don't know, if you go over the analytics, if you finish as a top 6 tight end in your first 2 years, there's a 92% chance that you'll do it for 4 or more years. So my odds are very, very high that Kyle Pitts is going to finish as a high-end tight end going forward. So I absolutely love it here, and that's where I'm going to go.
Nice.
Am I up here?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, sorry about that. So Jared Goff goes here at 5'2", then Tua Tagovailoa, then Josh Jacobs, Drake May, James Cook, Rashad White. So we're seeing a little bit of a running back run here where people are getting pretty desperate. These zombies, some think they're hungry for brains. These guys are hungry for running backs. Then it goes DK Metcalf, and Matt, you're on the board. You take a player I was actually considering. It was down to 2 receivers for me. And you took the one I was considering. Which way did you go?
So yeah, they're at 5'9". I ended up going George Pickens. He was the only guy that I felt, hey, this is the number 1 guy on his team. He has a really good shot to actually finish this year as a wide receiver 1. That I saw that isn't like competing with another wide receiver on his own team. You know what I mean? Like he is the top dog there for right now. So I just thought he had the best kind of the best lane, the best road to becoming a wide receiver 1. So George Pickens there, 5'9". After that pick at 5'10", it was JJ McCarthy. And then 5'11" was Zay Flowers, and then Garrett was on the board for a couple picks.
Yeah, and so far, I have 2 quarterbacks and I have 2 running backs. And I've talked about it before in my startups. Even if I'm not able to put a starting lineup out right away, I don't care. I'm big on sticking to my board, best available player, regardless of a position. Like, I'm taking the best guy. And this made it super easy because 1, I thought this guy was the best player available by far. But 2, it did fill a position of need for me. So it really made it super simple. I got Mark Andrews at 5'12", and for him to be going that much farther behind Bowers and McBride and Pitts, like, to me, they're all in the same tier. Like, I would draft them all relatively the same. Yes, you're a little bit older with Mark Andrews, 28, going to be turning 29. So, but we're seeing a lot of these tight ends playing till they're 33, 34, 35, 36. Like, so I still think there's plenty of time for Mark Andrews to be a very relevant tight end. And with it being a tight end premium, it worked out beautifully. So now I have a tight end spot. So for me, the way I'm thinking is I've got elite quarterbacks. I've got Caleb Williams, Dak Prescott. I feel great about it. I've got elite running backs, Bijan Robinson, Devon Achane, and now an elite tight end. So for me, I feel like I'm elite at 3 of the 4 main positions. But I know that the one position that is going to struggle, it is going to be my weakest position, is wide receiver. But for me, we talked about it in some of the earlier episodes, it's become such a deep position that, yes, you're not going to be getting the wide receiver 1s at this point, but there's a lot of guys that could still finish in that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range. So if I can get enough of those guys, I think I can still have a very solid wide receiver core. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be one of the top half of the league, but I still think I can get a good one. So I got my wide receiver 1, and I had a really hard time deciding who to take here. It was between 4 players for me, honestly. It was between Deebo Samuel, Tank Dell, Xavier Worthy, and T. Higgins. Those were the 4 guys that I was kind of trying to decide between. For me, with it being my first wide receiver, that kind of ruled out Dell and Worthy for me because I wanted to make sure I got an established veteran that I knew could be good and has shown to be good for several seasons. And Deebo was a little bit older. T. Higgins, I know he's in a weird situation, but he's either going to be stuck with Joe Burrow for a long time, oh darn, or he's going to go somewhere and be the number 1 wide receiver. So I went with T. Higgins here at 6'1".
And at 6'2", it was Isaiah Pacheco. 6'3" was Xavier Worthy. And then I was up again at 6'4". And T. Higgins was a guy that I was looking at along with George Pickens. I ended up, landing on Pickens just because I know he's going to be the number one guy there in that offense. So that was kind of my thinking there. But T. Higgins was right there with you. I just didn't want to wait a year. So to have to, know what's going to go out and what's going on with his situation, I guess easier said than done. I don't know. Whatever. I couldn't say that word. Sorry. But I ended up at 6'4". I wanted to get young. I wanted to get a rookie, my first rookie underneath my belt here, or actually my second rookie, but my first rookie wide receiver. And of the guys remaining, Xavier Legette was the guy that kind of stuck out to me as this guy can be a number one for his team. You know what I mean? So that's why I ended up going with him with 6'4", just so I want somebody, George Pickens is the number one guy. Who else has the potential to be a number one guy? So I can get two of these guys in my wide receiver slots. And for me, it was Xavier Legette. Did that feel early to any of you guys? I know there was guys that I was contemplating as well. Deebo Samuel, Jordan Addison, but he's not even the number one on his own team. And then there's Brian Thomas and stuff like that. Also, again, not the number one on his own team. Ladd McConkey was another guy that I was actually looking at, thinking this guy's going to get peppered with targets. And it would probably have been nice with Justin Herbert, but I ended up going with Legette.
You got your guy.
I have him ranked higher. So that's kind of how that was.
It's your guy. It falls in a category on rankings and your tape. That's your guy. You've been a Xavier Legette guy from literally the get-go. You've swooped him up in every single rookie draft I'm in with you in the first round. So this was not a shock to me whatsoever. And I mean, early is in the eye of the beholder, right? Just like a trade. So it's just, if this pick hits, then you look like a genius. If he's a solid number 2, then it's a very solid pick. If he busts, it's a bad pick. But you can say the same thing. It's no different saying the same thing about Brian Thomas, Ladd McConkey, Rashee Rice, Jordan Addison.
Xavier Worthy, one pick ahead of mine. Yeah,
exactly. So it can go any way, and you got your guy and the guy that you believed in. So I thought it was, early for me, but obviously very fair for you. So I was totally okay with it. And it puts you in a position to get that young guy and still go out there and get a veteran afterwards. But I'd rather get the young guy, the rookie that I believe in and that I love around too early than missing out on him in the falling round. Knowing from the get-go, I'm going to have to cover up this receiver spot with a veteran regardless. So you're way more likely to you're not getting the rookie back that you love compared to do I want Keenan Allen or Deontay Johnson, right? That's a much easier decision to make. And that's going to end the same way regardless, right? That end outcome is guaranteed. The upside of the rookie is unknown. You can go way higher in ADP with rookie. The ADP of Keenan Allen, Deontay Johnson, those guys, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, it's only going down no matter what they do, right? They come out here, Devontae Adams can have 1,500 yards, 1,600 yards, and 10 touchdowns. His ADP will still be lower most likely next year no matter what he does. So you're better off always overpaying today. We say it all the time, right? What looks like an overpay today is an underpay tomorrow. And that falls right in the category of these rookies. And I did the same thing when it came down back to me, but I love the pick here because you got your guy. You know what I mean? So you can't risk not getting him because you're going to feel way worse about that if it comes back to the next round and he's not there. And so what? You overpick a guy to start up by 12 picks? So who cares?
Yeah,
right?
It does not matter.
You're getting
Absolutely.
all the upside. He's a first round pick. They trade up in the first round to get him, to get that extra 5th-year option. You got security with it too, which is great with all those guys that go high second round, first round picks. You have some security there too that gives you a couple more years of opportunity. So to me, even though it's not my guy, it's still a great pick in my opinion.
All right. So with 6'5", right after my pick, it was Travis Kelce. 6 is where Deebo Samuel ended up going. 6'7" is Tank Dell. 6'8" was DeAndre Swift. He was a guy that I was actually kind of starting to warm up to with the Legette pick, but I just decided to go wide receiver. 6'9", Jordan Addison. 6'10", Brian Thomas. 6'11", is King Henry. Derrick Henry went off the board. And then Rich, you are up.
Yeah, this was a slam dunk, easiest pick I've made the entire draft. It was TJ Hawkinson. This is where I'm getting blessed and lucky with an current injury that in a startup means absolutely nothing to me, even though I got Kyle Pitts already. You know what I mean? Like that didn't matter. Tight end premium. To me, just 12 months ago, this was my number one overall dynasty tight end. 12 months ago. So
yep.
This injury, it's not like we're talking about some older player. He's only 26 years old. He just signed a long-term contract. He's got a ton of security there with a good, accurate upside quarterback. So TJ Hawkinson to me was a smash, easy pick. The pair up with Kyle Pitts, knowing when he comes back healthy, knowing I could wait a full year for him. I got 2 tight ends at tight end premium that I can start every single week, right? It's not like, oh, do I want to start this tight end? He's a must start in premium leagues every single week. And then after that is where I got here we are, right? Rounds pick 7. And I said before, like rounds pick like 3 through 7's like the core. And I said I could find a championship. It's really like picks 7 through 10 that could really that's where you could build a championship. Because that's where you have to decide, do I want to take some of these older guys that I'm only going to get a year out of, get 2 years out of? I know I'm probably going to get a good year out of. Or do I want to chase that upside and get that long-term security? And for me, I always lean that after I get my core, so round 7. And I really wanted to take Ladd McConkey here. I really did. But I already had 2 receivers. We only start 2 receivers in the set. And I was just looking at the running back on the board, and there was only 2 young running backs that I still really liked. And that was Trey Benson and Jonathan Brooks. And I was like, I have to take one of these guys. And not to the point where, like Garrett said, I'm going to stick to my board and not force anything. I still have Jonathan Brooks in the same tier as Ladd McConkey, right? So to me, I'm not, I'm just taking a running back here because I need a running back. I'm taking a position of need in the same tier that I have. And I know for sure that these 2 running backs aren't coming back to me. And I already knew that I faded a running back. So for me, the opportunity to get a guy who's the first running back on the board, a player that I absolutely loved his tape, who has tremendous upside, was kind of sealed that deal for me. Because I wanted Deshaun Watson here as my 3rd quarterback, or I wanted Ladd McConkey. But Jonathan Brooks is in that tier, filled a need, and also will give me an opportunity not to chase that position later and end up on it with a team that has no running backs. Because if I don't take Jonathan Brooks here, I wouldn't end up with a team where, like Garrett said, I have no problem drafting and figuring out the running back position later. If I would have missed Jonathan Brooks here, I would have been in that position right after the draft, like, who am I trading with? How am I getting a running back? Like, how am I getting Raheem Mostert off of somebody's team? How am I getting Joe Mixon? So I went Jonathan Brooks. After that, I went Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Ladd McConkey, Rashee Rice, Jaden Reed, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Bryce Young, and then Matt, you're on the board here at 7-9. Hey guys, let me tell you about our friends at Sleeper. Guess what? Our app the mini is live on Sleeper right now. The Dynasty GM, pretty. You can use the analyzer, you can use the trade calculator, and my favorite thing is the inbox, right? Where all your trades from all your Sleeper leagues are right there. You can actually push trades through the actual Sleeper app. And right now, we could be more excited to be partners with them. And right now, if you don't know, they are doing DFS. And I know how many people that play Dynasty play DFS as well. And right now, there's not a better place to play DFS than Sleeper. They're offering up to 100 times your entry, the highest payout in the whole DFS market right now. You can track your fantasy players and your Sleeper picks in real time. All you got to do is choose 2 to 8 of your favorite players from pregame, live in-game, or even across different sports. Pick more or less than the predicted stats, and only on Sleeper you can get up to 100 times your payout. You can share with your friends and get rewarded together. Make sure you use that promo code NERD so our friends know that friends sent them their way. And get your deposit match and have a good time. Have all your DFS, all of your fantasy leagues, and now even a Dynasty GM in one spot. It is fully operational inside Sleeper right now. And then when you're a Nerd Herd member, you get that full access to that. And remember, you also want to download the Dynasty Nerds app because they're both in there. Check it out. Check our friend Sleeper. Check out the DFS. Use that promo code NERDS.
Get your whole estate.
And much like you, looking there at the young running backs, by this point, there was only one guy I was really honing in on, and it was Benson. So that's who I went with at 7-9. I needed to get somebody on my team. I needed to get some youth at that position as well. I didn't want to be stuck with all old guys, which is what's going to be left in a few rounds, right? I mean, like it's going to be mostly peppered with old guys, guys with injuries, stuff like that. So I decided to get the fresh leg rookie. I know he's got an injury history in college. That's why Garrett loves him. But he's clean. He's clean right now. He's only got Connor ahead of him there in Arizona, and I really like where that offense is going. So I think Trey Benson is going to be a nice fit there. I think he's going to be in an explosive offense for years to come. So I felt really good about getting Benson here in the 7th round. And then after my pick, it was Ramondre Stevenson, who was the guy I was actually contemplating. Obviously, just got the extension here. He was just older. So I mean, if you got a guy that's 4 years younger and he's on his first contract, or a guy that's going into his second contract, I'm going to pick the rookie every single time. So that was a pretty easy decision. But Ramondre Stevenson, I think, is a solid running back. So it was a good zombie pick at 7-10, and then 7-11 was Mike Evans, and then Garrett was up for a couple picks.
So where do we want to stop? Because we are about to finish round 7. Obviously, I'm going to give my round 7 selection. But do we want to stop here, or do maybe one more round and then the rest for the next third?
Let's do one more round until tomorrow's show.
Or tomorrow's
with round 2, since we had the intro in the beginning and everything, so we'll actually fill out the last 2 extra rounds here. So we'll go through round 9. This will get us through round 8. If we go your 2 picks here, end with my last pick, tease it. And we'll pick back up in round 9.
Round 9.
Tomorrow's show.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So, like I mentioned before, strong believer in best player available, almost to a fault. And I ended up being the guy that was, well, before I say this, I was really considering what I was going to do if either Benson or Stevenson made it to me. I know I already had 2 running backs, but for me, I have them ranked ahead of James Cook, Rachaad White, DeAndre Stevenson, Derrick Henry. Like, I have Benson and Stevenson as my running backs 13 and 14 in my ranking. So for me, like, that was screaming good value. So I'm kind of glad they didn't, because I probably would have taken them, but I don't know that it would have been the best pick, but I was going to take who I had the best grade on, and it would have been one of those 2 guys. But I'm actually really happy with who I got here. I ended up being the guy that took the third, or the first guy to take the 3rd quarterback for his team. So I ended up going with Deshaun Watson here. For me, I have Deshaun Watson in my rankings in a very similar range to Drake May and JJ McCarthy, ahead of Bryce Young, ahead of Bryce Young. So May went in 5.5, McCarthy went 5.10, Bryce Young went 7.8. So for me, this is screaming value compared to where all of those other guys went. So this is a little bit earlier than I typically take my 3rd quarterback, but he was the best player on the board. And in a super flex league, now I have some great trade assets to potentially maneuver and use. So felt really good about that. And then there was one receiver that I really had my eye on. I've talked about him as a sleeper a lot this offseason. Gets paired with Rich's 2nd quarterback, and I think he's going to really boost himself in this season, and that's Terry McLaurin. So that gives me a 2nd solid receiver that I feel good about with T. Higgins and Terry McLaurin. So
I'm really surprised, Garrett, that you didn't take Amari Cooper there. Like, with the Watson pick, like, both of them being pretty similar in age too, with Cooper and McLaurin, and Cooper dominating there. Like, I was like, oh, that'd have been a really, like, once you took Watson, I was like, oh, he's going to take Cooper. I was like, oh, that kind of helps out his receiving core that he missed out to go with T. Higgins, gives him like a wide receiver 1. And it gets that stack with Watson, and kind of you get bench Caleb Williams. So that's the one where, like, I was kind of like, outside of the HN, I was kind of surprised. This one kind of surprised just slightly. I thought
the reason I didn't
pick, but nothing crazy.
I have a lot of Amari Cooper. I've been drafting him a lot the past few years, but I think this is the year that the targets are not going to be as plentiful as they were in the past. That was part of the reason I loved Amari Cooper so much. I remember I ranked him as a top 12 guy 2 years ago. People thought I was crazy, and he finished as a top 12 guy. But I'm worried about David Njoku, his kind of emergence. Then they added Jerry Jeudy as well, and it seems like Deshaun Watson, even though I just drafted him, I still just don't know, and so with all of those kinds of things, I just don't know that he's going to get the monster target share that he once had. So that was why I decided to go against it. But it was a tricky pick for me. So with the second pick in the 8th round, Javonte Williams went, then Cooper Kupp went, and then a familiar name went. Matt, who'd you take at 8-4?
Yeah, so at 8-4, I was kind of hoping Kupp was going to fall to me. He didn't. He went right before me, but I ended up getting Amari Cooper, and I felt really good about that. Rich, you mentioned earlier, when I picked Xavier Legette, that you're going to need to back him up with a veteran type of guy, and that's exactly what my plan was, going into this, and that is why I ended up picking Amari Cooper, because I know what I'm going to get out of him. Yes, there was in the back of my mind that, hey, are his targets going to drop some with Judy coming here to Cleveland? I'm sure there will be somewhat of a drop off, but I still feel pretty good because he's my third guy. You know what I mean? He's not my first or second guy. He's my third guy, and he's likely he's going to start as my second guy until Legette kind of gets up to speed. And maybe there'll be times when he's outpacing Pickens, and maybe it'll be back and forth between those guys as to who my number one guy is week in and week out. But the potential is there, and that's really what I'm looking for in Amari Cooper. I would have loved Kupp because I think I could see more of a return to form for him, and then all of a sudden he is just a monster. Whereas in Cooper, it's kind of who knows. But I still feel really good that I kind of backed up my rookie. And then at 8-5, it was Keon Coleman. At 8-6, it was Joe Mixon. 8-7, Kirk Cousins went. 8-8, it was George Kittle. 8-9, David Njoku. 8-10, Baker Mayfield. 8-11, Alvin Kamara. And then Rich, you were on for the last pick in the 8th round.
Yeah, and sitting here, I thought about a couple of different options of way I can go. Like I could grab my other second running back. I thought Najee Harris would have been a solid pick here. Zamir White's upside, I was kind of looking at. Even Evan Ingram for my third tight end, I thought was a good option here for me. But I ended up going, even though I had the 2 receivers and you got to start 3, there was a receiver that I really like here, and that's Christian Kirk as my wide receiver 3, a 27-year-old receiver who's already been a wide receiver 1, who's the clear-cut number 1 receiver on this team right now, locked up with Trevor Lawrence here. So, the get another young receiver where I don't have to go out there and then, chase a rookie that I don't know what's going to do, like get a DeAndre Hopkins or like a Jerry Jeudy or like hope Jameson Williams pans out. There's another receiver I ended up getting later that I was really happy to get as well, but just to have that option of a third receiver, I went Christian Kirk here. Felt pretty comfortable with it, with who else was on the board. And I thought there'd be a chance some of those running backs could come back to me. None of them did. Teaser alert. None of them did, which kind of shakes it. And maybe it's one of those things, like if I'd known the board would have played out the way it would have, I probably would have taken one of those running backs I mentioned and would have been happy with the third receiver I got a couple rounds later. But I did take Christian Kirk here. And who did I take in the 9th pick? Well, tune in tomorrow and you'll find out exactly who that is. And a little teaser, it's a pick that I really, really am happy with. We'll talk about him tomorrow on our next Dynasty Nerds podcast.
Adios.